All right, this is the rules of exponents. This week we'll be covering 4-7 through 4-9, and then we're going to jump to 5-9. All right, so when we are, before we get started with our rules of exponents, I'd like to take a step back and show you okay, I'm recording right now, so I need you to stop talking. Okay, so as we're doing this, let's take a step back and look at the different parts. We've got that little 5, that means it's an exponent, and that big X is really the base. We call the big number the base, the little number the exponent. And what that means is x times x times x times x. If I have 3 to the 4th, that means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And we can do that in a number of ways. It's harder for me to multiply one at a time. If I do 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Because then I can't do mentally 27 times 3. But if I multiply these in pairs and then multiply the results, for instance, 3 times 3 equals 9, times the other 3 times 3, and 9 times 9 is 81. So basically, this is another way to do it. I can just match them up in groups. Now, again, really quickly, we've got our base, the x. We have our exponent 5, and it means that number gets multiplied by itself 5 times. It doesn't mean 5 times x, or it doesn't mean 3 times 4. It means 3 times itself 4 times. Questions? All right. So now we are going to go back to what our lesson today is, and that is multiplying with common bases. Okay, so if I have a to the nth power times a to the nth power, if it is a common base, then what we can do is really, well, let me do this. You tell me what the rule is. If I have 3 to the 3rd power times 3 to the 4th power, what does this really mean? Yes.
3 times 3 times 3.
3 times 3 times 3. Times, what does this one mean? Yeah.
3 times 3 times 3 times 3.
Now, is there an abbreviated way to write that since it's straight multiplication? How can I write that whole thing using an exponent? Yeah. 3 to the 7th power. Now remember, we say to the 7th power. Now, what do you think the shortcut rule is here when they have common bases? What do I do with the exponents? Haley?
You add them together?
Right. If the bases are the same, I add the exponents when we multiply. When we multiply with common bases, what we really do is just add the exponents. Questions? So let's see what my PowerPoint said. So again, I've got 4 to the 3rd power. That means 4 times 4 times 4 plus 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, makes 4 to the what power? Somebody I haven't heard from? Angela?
4 to the 5th power?
4 to the 5th power. Instead of expanding, we want you to learn that rule, that we add the exponents when we are multiplying. The 3rd power plus the 2nd power equals 4 to the 5th power. Now, if your answer is within reason, if your answer is within reason, then we want you to multiply that out. Like if you add 3 to the third power, can you multiply that out? 3 times 3 is
9.
times another 3 is
7.
that's a reasonable answer. When you start getting like 4 to the 5th power, if you don't have a calculator, I'm not going to ask you to multiply that out. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's try it. With these, they look small enough now. So let's multiply them out. What would this be? What am I going to do? Amanda.
Number 1?
Yeah. 2 to the
2 to the second.
power
Yeah, and then 2 to the third power.
plus...
Wait,
What rule am I using here? I want you to use the rule.
you're adding the exponents.
How would you say it? 2 to the 2 to the second power plus the third power. Everybody say that. 2 to the second power plus the third power. I want you to say that to me so that you start learning how to show the work. Which equals what Amanda said was 2 to the 5th power. Now that's reasonable. 2 times 2 is how much? That's only 2. Times another 2, 4 times 2 is? 8 times 2 is? 16 times 2 is? So that's reasonable. Questions? All right. Now, what do you think number 2 is really asking? Sabina. Close, yeah, but what is it asking? It's asking you to multiply what? To the what power? When it says it's not to the 0 power, to the first power. If there's no 1 written and the number is there, it's to the first power. Okay? So if there's nothing written there, it's to the first power. And so then you were right, Sabina. What am I doing? I'm adding 3 to the... How do I read it?
3 to the second power.
Plus the first power equals 3 to the third power. Good. And that's doable. Does anybody know what that multiplies out to? Mary.
27.
What?
27.
3 to the third power equals 27. All right. Now, next one. Do you want to try this one on your own?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys try this. Pause the recording and try the next one. Okay, so now we are doing the next one, which he said we do. The quantity of -2 is the base to the 4th power plus the 2nd power equals what, Jared?
-2 to the 6th power.
-2 to the 6th power. Now this gets really tricky because I can multiply that out. First of all, is my answer going to be positive or negative?
Positive.
Because I have an even amount of negatives. Okay, and -2 to the 6th power makes, we said, yes, 64, positive 64. Number 4, you guys pause, do that one on your own, go. Give me a thumbs up when you are done. What did you get here? What did you do?
Well, since it's x, I just put x.
X. What's the work you must show?
I added 7 before, so
X to the
11 power.
X to, you added what? What did you write down?
I put x to the 11th power.
Before that, what is your work? I am requiring this.
7
X to the 7th power plus,
X to the 4th power.
everybody say that with me. X to the 7th power plus the 4th power. Do I need to redo the x?
No.
X to the 7th power plus the 4th power. And she got x to the 11th. Can we break that down anymore? Because we don't know how much x is. So we stop there. Fractions. Oh my gosh. Everybody worries about fractions. But it's not so scary. It's 1/2 to the second power plus the, which makes 1/2 to the 5th power. Now let's multiply that out. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, not plus. So the numerator will be 1, and the denominator will be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Yes?
10.
2 times 2. Stop. Haley's answering this.
Oh, sorry.
2 times 2
4.
times 2
8.
times 2
16.
times 2.
13.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Okay, you're adding. You're wanting to add it. Okay? Remember, we are multiplying. So was that as hard as you thought it would be? Okay, the next one. What do you think we do for this one? Ryan, which two?
X to the 5th and X to the 6th.
Makes x to the,
X to 11.
right, times y to the 3rd. Can I add the 3 in there? Because it's not the same base. Remember, this rule is only for the same base. Multiplying bases with, like bases with exponents. So it's x to the 11th, y to the 3rd. Notice, when the variable's next to it, I don't need to write the big dot. It's repetitive. It next to means multiplication. Questions? Okay. Now, we're making it a little trickier. Now we've got 2x to the 3rd times, now remember, when it says 2x to the 3rd, that's straight multiplication. That means 2 times x to the 3rd times 5 times x to the 4th. What do we call 2 and 5? Who remembers what those are called? Ryan?
A constant?
No. Coefficient. So, we do like bases with like bases, coefficient with coefficient. I'm just going to use my commutative property here, and I'm going to rewrite it. How about like this? 2 times 5, the two coefficients, times x to the 3rd, times x to the 4th. Does that make sense? And 2 times 5 makes what? 10. And then what I've got is x to the 3rd power plus the 4th power. So what is my final answer? Haley?
10x to the power of 7.
Perfect. 10x to the 7th power. Questions? Coefficient with coefficient, like base with like base. If it's straight straight multiplying. Questions? Okay, so let's do this next one. Let's do number 1 together. What do you think it's going to be? What would I do first? How about somebody I haven't heard their voice today? Jeanette, number 1. Let's try coefficient with coefficient first.
8 times 3.
Which is what? 24. And then we've got a to the 5th power
A to the 5th power times
plus,
plus A to the 7th.
do I need to write plus a to the 7th? No, I'm just adding the exponents. And what does that simplify to?
12.
So what's my final answer going to be?
24. A to the 12th power.
Perfect. Do you understand? We are not adding the coefficients. We are not adding the a's. We are only adding the exponents when we multiply variable terms. Okay, pause the recording, and you guys finish 2 through 4. Go. All right, so on the number 2, we multiply our -3 times +4, like coefficients. We multiply the coefficients. We get -12, and a to the 1st power times a to the 7th power, which is a to the 1st power plus the 7th power, is a to the 8th. Now, number 3, a set what? You said 9 times -2 is?
-18.
Good.
And I multiply that with x times the power of 2 plus the power of 1.
X to the 2nd power plus the 1st power.
And then I get x
And then y to the what?
y to the power of 3 plus the power of 5.
Okay, and what does that all simplify to?
-18 times x to the 3rd power.
And
times
y?
y to the 8th power.
Good. Y to the 8th. And that is our final simplified answer. Questions? Okay. Okay, next one, Angela, you want to go?
Yes.
Okay.
So first I multiplied 6 and 5 and I got 30.
Good.
And then I got, since A was 2 and on the other like multiplication thing, A was 1 because of
Good.
the sign there.
Okay, so I'm
So-
doing
A2
a to the 2nd power.
plus the 1st power.
Uh-huh.
And then B on the first half, it was 1. And then in the second half, it's 5. So it's B, the 1st power
Plus the,
5th power.
good.
And
And
then
then
on C, it's to the 3rd power.
we just write to the 3rd. And what does it simplify to?
30A to the 3rd power, B to the 6th power, and C to the 3rd power.
Perfect. I need you guys to stop whispering. Okay, questions? All right. You think you got that down?
Yes, I do.
Now, these are very easy. The problem is there's a ton of rules. So here we go. Let's throw another one in. Okay, this is what we call a product to a power. Product to a power. That means we're multiplying things to a power. We have product to a power to a power, quotient to a power. So, we multiply. If everything is multiplied inside, then everything inside is to that nth power. So there's the rule. That means in number 1, when we have 3x squared, what is squared? How about Jasmine?
It's it's 3 3 squared and x squared.
Yes. 3 is squared. Everything in there is squared. And 3 squared is what?
3 times 3, which is
Good. Okay. Pause the recording and do number 2 and then stop. Is everybody done with number 2?
Yes.
Who's still working? Okay. Go.
Okay, so on number 2, you have 2y times the power of 3.
The quantity. We say when it's in the parentheses, we're going to say the quantity because it means the whole parenthesis is to the 3rd power. The exponent is touching the parenthesis. Everything's to the 3rd power. Good, go on.
So the quantity of 2y to the power, times the power of 3 and equals 2 to the power of 3 y to the power of 3
Times y to the power of
times
3.
y to the power of 3, and that equals 8y to the power of 3.
Okay. I also want you to think about this. When you have the quantity, now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. If the whole thing is to the third power, that could mean 2y times 2y times 2y. Isn't that the same thing as 2 to the third power times y to the third power? Okay, 2 to the third power is 8. Y can't be simplified. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, this time, we have a negative in there. Now, this is where it gets sneaky. Yet, I always say to you, what is the base of the exponent? Can you guys tell me what the base of that exponent is? Angela.
-5.
That's not the only part. Ashley.
M.
That's not only it. Amanda.
-5m?
-5m. Or I could say the parenthesis. And the parenthesis includes the -5n. So if it's touching the parenthesis, that means everything in there. So that means the -5. The negative is squared, the 5 is squared. And m is squared. -5 squared is what? Positive 25. And m squared, we can't simplify it any more than that. Okay, you guys do number 4. And give me Mary, can you tell me what number 4 is?
Number 4, I got 64 t's to the third power.
Perfect. 4 cubed, t cubed, 64 t cubed.
I thought cube was 4.
No, cubed means 3 to the third power.
So what's 4?
There's no special name for the fourth power. Okay, now, if I get something like this, now let's look. It's 3 to the second power, A is to the second power, B to the second power, and C to the second power. What does that simplify to? 3 squared, A squared, B squared, C squared. What does it simplify to, Pedro?
9a squared b squared c squared.
Yep. And the next one. Amanda.
Oh, wait. Let me write those ones down. Oh.
Okay. Pedro.
-64
Yes.
x
Cubed.
cubed and y cubed.
And you could say third power too. Now remember, the negative is to the third power. And negative times negative times negative makes a negative. Okay? So this case, it's -64. Questions? Okay, the last one we did was power to a product to a power. Now we're going to look at a power to a power. That means we have a power and we take it to another power. Now, in this situation, look what I do. What do I do with those powers?
You add them.
Does that look like they're added? What does next to mean? We multiply a power to a power. So if you have exponents outside and inside a parenthesis, instead of adding them, we multiply them. So let's try it. What would number 1 be? Nishat.
Y,
To the
third and fourth power.
third times the fourth power, which is?
Y to the third power multiplied by the fourth power.
Which is?
Y to the 4.
No, what's 3 times 4?
Oh, 12.
To the 12th power, yes. We multiply that. Here I can't really multiply because they're different and it's with variables. But we multiply them. Try the next one, Nishat.
Oh, okay. N to the 6th power.
No. What am I doing to get that 12?
You're multiplying.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So it's N
To the...
to the power. Oh, okay, never mind.
Do
Sorry.
the way I'm doing it here. I want you to...
Or now we'll take a number. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so number 2 is N to the 10th power.
But how am I getting here? What am I doing?
You're multiplying.
Read it to me. Like this.
Okay. N to the 2nd power times the 5th power equals
Perfect. And to the...
10th power.
Perfect. Questions? Pause it and... Well, let's try this one. Now, this one, number 3, everything in there is to the 3rd power. Now, 3, we're just going to take it to the 3rd power. 3 to the 3rd power, and t squared, the exponent, gets multiplied by the 3rd power. So what does that simplify to? Yes, Pedro?
27T6.
T to the 6th power. You guys pause and do number 4. Go. Okay, Haley, next one.
It is the quantity of 5k, 5k to the power of 3 times power of 2. And you have to do everything in the parentheses.
So what's it going to be?
So it's going to be 25k to the power of 9.
5 squared.
And you're multiplying the 3 and the 2.
It's not to the power. What are you doing? What is it going to be?
25k to the power of 9.
No. We're not. Look. Everything in there is squared. We take 5. Where are you getting the power of 9? 5 is squared. K to the 3rd is multiplied. What does that simplify to, Haley? So what's it going to be?
25k to the power of 6.
Good.
I was thinking 3 times.
I know. Okay. Questions? Okay, let's try these. They get harder and trickier. Just a little bit longer. Let's go. Want to try the first one together?
Yes.
You can move on. If you want to work together, we're going to work together. So we're taking negative 2 is to the 4th power. Remember, a squared is also, I have to multiply it by the 4th power. B cubed, I also have to multiply it by the 4th power. And C is strictly to the 4th power. And that should simplify to negative 2 to the 4th power is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 16. Positive 16, because negative to the 4th power is going to be positive. A to the 8th, B to the 12th, C to the 4th. You guys finish up 2 and 3. Number 2. Ashley.
You put negative 5 in parentheses, and you put the
Hold on. Negative 5, it stays in parentheses, is to what power?
2,
Good. 2nd power.
and then x to the power of 10 times
No, not x. In this case, it's x is to the power of
10.
2. No. Because this is like x to the 1st power. I must have misseen that you wrote it down wrong.
So then
X is to the 2nd power, because really, if x is to the 1st power, if there's nothing there, it's to the 1st power. It's 1 times 2. And then y,
y is 3 times
no, you're off. Look at the board.
10
Times what?
2
And then z,
is 3 times
good. And what does that simplify to? Look at my board. Don't look at your paper.
It's 25
X to the,
to the 2nd power
y to the,
to the 20 to the power.
and z to the, perfect. Questions? Okay, next one, Piper.
Okay, so first you have to multiply -8 to the second power, which is
No. Why?
It's outside the parentheses.
It's outside the parentheses. The base of that exponent is only in the parentheses because that's what the exponent is touching. Do you understand?
that's what I put first, and then she said that everything.
8's not in there. The exponent only is related to what it's touching. So then I have what? Times. Keep going, Piper. Forget about your paper and do it up here with me.
Okay.
N to the,
N to the third power times 2.
good.
To the fourth power times 2. And t to the power of 0 times 2.
Okay, what is, this stays the same.
So your final answer is -8 n to the 6th power, p to the 8th power, and t to the power of 0.
What does that equal, t to the power of 0? It actually equals 1. So if that equals 1, that whole thing, I don't even have to write it. I just ignore it and leave it like that.
So you would have added to the.
No. Because would I write times 1? Do I need to write times 1?
Oh, okay. I get it.
That's equivalent to 1. So this simplifies to this. It's terrible the way I wrote it there. It simplifies to this. Hold on. 8. Oops. It simplifies to 8, n to the 6th, p to the 8th. Yes.
Wait, so any number or variable with the exponent of the 0
Equals 1. You know, x to the 0 power, y to the 3 to the 0 power really equals 1. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, so we learned a lot of rules today. We learned a lot of rules. We learned how to multiply. Okay, hold on. We learned how to multiply. Let's go back through the rules. When I'm multiplying with a like base like this, what do I do with the exponents? This is multiplying with common bases. What do? We add the exponents. Okay? What happens if I have something like this? We multiply. Power to a power, we multiply them. Okay, questions there? Pause the recording. It is now over. Actually, you can stop it.